Hey, what's up? Good morning. Ayodele Harrison, Senior Partner of Education with CommunityBuild Ventures. Just excited. Um, well, uh, Excited internally. It's been a long month. May has been a very interesting and blessed month. A lot of things have been accomplished. We've been doing a lot of work on our house. But before we jump into that, I wanted to just begin as I began last month with Brave Space. Uh, Gratitude, feelings, and intentions. So gratitude. I am so grateful for the village that Natasha and I have been able to build out in our community. And the village has helped us, assisted us in so many ways, spoken and unspoken, to help our son graduate. And so our son, Johnny Harrison, just graduated from the new school here in Atlanta, high school. And we celebrated this past week. I forget what date it was, but earlier this week, and just excited to be able to do that. And we had a graduation party, and family came over, friends came over, all our village came out and supported, showed his love for him, showed their love for Natasha and I, and as well as the family. And so, just really grateful to have those moments. I know that during a pandemic, it's challenging, but we can see some light at the end of the tunnel. But then also, as we know, with family, sometimes it's the more uh, I guess you would say not so happy events that might bring us together. And so to be able to come together around the joyous celebration is really cool. So I'm just grateful for that. How am I feeling with all that? Kind of exhausted. As I've said before, we've been doing some renovations on our home. As you can see, some of the artwork behind me. I did an episode where I was out in the dining room. And you saw people passing by, so we had painting done and all this other type of stuff done um, to get it done. But also knowing that we had this graduation celebration coming, so it just was a lot. Putting up light fixtures, hanging a door, like you might see over there. That door is brand new. That was not there before. So just hanging up a barn door and doing all those things. So after work, almost every evening for the past month and a half at least has been like doing something, cleaning something up, stripping down a box, putting up a light fixture, moving a box here, moving a box there. So just it's been a long, exhausting month, but also a month full of joy. So feeling accomplished, I think, is another word to be able to say, and feeling um, yeah, complete in that sense. And then my intentions today are really just to keep you caught up and just share with you some of the things that I've been doing as senior partner, and just some of the things that have been on my mind with that, and just keep you up to speed on, putting some life to like what really is happening with senior partner in this space. And so let's jump in. So I am complete with that. I, as I said, so BME's talk, the leadership lab has been going for 4 months and just wrapped on May 19th. And there's a lot that I can say. There's a lot has been said, but I really wanted to take a moment and just share with you a 3-minute video of a gentleman. This gentleman is by the name is Andre, who is currently studying in New York. He's in a teacher preparation program called New York City Men Teach, and so he's an aspiring teacher, and he's participated in the leadership lab for all 4 months that we've been going. So every single session, every one of the 5 sessions, he's been there. And just something really powerful happened with him in our session the other day. So I'm just going to share that with you, and then I'll come back and talk more about that. Let me see here. Let me just get this up here. Oh, okay. Hopefully you can see this here. I'm gonna go full screen there. All right, here we go.
I wanted to share one of mine real quick. It's just a picture. Oh, let me take my virtual background off, else it's not going to work. There we go. So it's a picture of BME's talk, opening up their arms with some love, saying welcome, whoever you are. And this was actually an experience with you, Ayodele, when you spoke at New York City Men Teach, and you invited me to these workshops. You said, if you identify as a Black male educator, you're more than welcome. And, that I didn't take any offense to that. Some people might hear that and they'll think, oh, he's like excluding people, whatever. But to me, it was an invitation to think about my own racial identity. And it was like, if you if you want to be with us, we will have you. And it was more like a welcoming into a group of men of color that I've always wanted to be a part of, because as a mixed race individual, I never felt like I was part of any specific group. So when you said that to me, it was the first time anyone had ever invited me to think about my own racial identity, rather than simply ascribing one to me, being like, oh, he looks Hispanic, he looks Latino, he looks kind of white, he looks kind of dark. So that was like a momentous occasion for me looking back, because at the time it was like so casual, but it was something that I'd never experienced before. And it's something that has since changed the way I think of myself and my place in this community and my place in education, and the role I can take as a role model for others, and how the people in this group became role models for me. So I just wanted to share that.
So that's Andre. There's so many different directions I can go and feed off of that, but that was such a life giving. He shared that with the entire group. That wasn't just one on one; it was the entire group, and that's a dream come true to be able to create a space where he can feel that way. Because I share it wasn't until 16 years into my teaching career, and actually after I quit teaching and left the classroom, that I engaged in learning, where I did a lot more in-depth exploration of my own race and my racial identity. As said before, I'm a graduate of Howard University, took a lot of classes on, that involved African American history and Blackness, but there was just I hadn't had an experience where I sat down and really was asked, what do you think your racial identity is? How should it be crafted? Right? And exploring that in a space, not people telling me what my identity, or even showing me people that I identify with, but actually sitting and thinking about and creating that space. And so with BME's Talk Leadership Lab, to have created that for Andre, who's going into the teaching profession, right? He's about to launch in, and having that, so going in and thank you, that was just a short interview, but being able to explore that going in and having a better sense of who he is going into the classroom, like that's powerful, so that he can walk in that understanding of, it's been challenging for him to identify, but he's coming to terms with it. How much more authentic will he be able to show up as a teacher now for his students, for the parents, for the community he serves, and for his colleagues, having a better sense of who he is, or at least beginning that journey of deepening his understanding of who he is and his own racial identity, and how that shows up for him and also shows up in the schools and the communities that he's going to be working in. So that is BME's Talk. That's one aspect of it, right? That's why we come together to network, to do this learning, to be in a brave space where we can unmask and really have these authentic experiences. And then also the second part is thinking about, how might I create similar experiences, or the conditions for these experiences to happen on my job, with my colleagues, in my home, personally or professionally. And so the lab was a exceptional success. Even if it's just touch that one person, but I know I've shared video after video, and I'm going to release an impact statement, so that you'll know kind of like all that have been affected with it. So just really excited that's come to a close, and well, I'm sad that it's come to a close, but it was a 360-degree circle in terms of us being able to network, really connect and unmask, and really do some investigation of who we are individually as Black men, and also collectively. We were able to talk about equity in student learning. We were able to tell our racial identity journey, learn how to lead and exercising, cultivating, or developing, building community agreements, right? And then we ended our last session on May 19th. It was around celebrating moments of excellence. So we were able to tell stories of excellence, and it was so fascinating. I'm going to release another video soon, but it showed that no matter what folks' background, where they were, what they were working on, there were some common elements to excellence and success happening within there. So that was just a great way to just close it off, especially close off the school year, because now in June, school years are wrapping up for a lot of people. And so the BME's Talk Leadership Lab, we are going to, round one is done, right? We're going to reflect on it, learn a little bit from it, learn a lot from it, and then we're going to relaunch it again. We're going to launch it again later this fall for the 21-22 school year. We're going to do it again, and so be looking out for the advertisements. Again, this is professional development. It's going to be a 4-month-long engagement that we're going to have with these Black men. We look forward to more Black men. We look for the same to come back and participate, but then we also look to expand our reach and have a broader network and bring in more Black men from around the country to engage with that. So that's just, Leadership Lab was just so filling, over those times. And so what else has been happening this month? A lot of sharing, late April and early May, a lot of sharing around Brave Space. I had the privilege to speak at the MPEA, National Partnership of Educational Access, and also the University of Central Arkansas, the Centering Equity Conference. That was a really good time where I was able to share about Brave Space. And it was just interesting. One brother had raised, he said he had read a lot about Brave Space and how it's different from Safe Space, right? And I've talked about the difference as well. But then he was able to say, like, the Brave Space, the 6 components that we talk about, actually take it to another level. It's about creating the conditions for, as a facilitator, for people to experience that brave space, not just have it done to you or for you, but how do we create this, right? And how do we have this system of really centering assumptions, centering shared language, centering what else is it? Assumptions, shared language, and community agreements in that particular process. So it was just a really great time, and and I want to just, there's a lot of communities that we hope to continue to build with and share Brave Space with as we are. There are links in on our blog, the CBV blog, also below for you to learn more about Brave Space. That's the first time you're hearing it, right? And then in the middle of May 16th, I had a chance to, my first ever, I served as a moderator for a panel, right? And this panel was held by the Bond Project, which is a Men of Color and Education Initiative project that's happening in the Maryland area. And so Montgomery County, but they reached the whole DMV. And so they had their 3rd annual Bond Academy. And then what I was able to do, I was invited by Principal Damon Harris, to actually moderate a panel of men of color in education leaders. So these are folks who are running organizations, initiatives to support Black men, Latinx men, men of color in education from all levels. And some of them are engaged in doing direct on the ground support of men in classrooms and schools. Others are doing policy change, policy shift work, and then everything in between. And so it was just really good to take a moment to, like, center them, right? Because I think so many times when we come together, we want to talk about the challenge, we want to talk about the issue ahead, and that's really good. But in this panel, what I wanted to do was help the audience get to know more about the panelists, more about what was their why for creating their organization? What are some of the challenges that they're currently seeing? What are some of the successes? Like, what are one of my exciting, the funnest, enthusiast, the greatest question I said is, tell me a moment of great success, right? And one brother, Dr. Howard Fields, he's a co-founder of Black Male Educators St. Louis. One thing he said was, with his work and his project with his team, with Dr. Daryl Diggs, what they did was they created a flipped career fair, where essentially they were highlighting the um, excuse me, they were highlighting the candidates more so than the actual institutions that were looking to hire. So they found a way to uplift and give the candidates a platform to share who they were, to express who they were, and to ask actual principals, superintendents questions themselves. And so they were uplifted, and they used the digital format to flip the career fair, which was a really exciting, knowledge resource sharing moment that we had from Dr. Fields. And so there's a lot of men of color, specifically Black men in education, who are really impacting the landscape of working on recruiting and also retention strategies for Black men in education, for men of color in education. But then a lot of those strategies are also working with schools, but then also on the policy level. So got a chance to lead that. I was nervous the entire time. Some heavy hitters on the call, but it was exciting just to be in a space where to facilitate, to facilitate a conversation with them, to be able to share with a broader community their work, and had a lot of great feedback from that. And also this month, it's been just exciting. I want to throw a big shout out to Allison Todd, and her work with being our marketing director. She's been exceptional about figuring out ways for me to communicate more effectively, writing blogs and using a podcast. And I gotta say, there's two things that I want to share with you this month that I created, and one was a LinkedIn. I'll link it below. But Natasha and I, President CEO, and also of CommunityBuild Ventures, also my wife, had a really good conversation about racial equity centered workforce development and what that looks like. And one of the biggest things we talked about was really she shared was how sometimes if we don't center racial equity in workforce development, we actually might be not actually we are preparing not preparing Black people to enter a workforce or a workspace or professional setting that is traumatic. And so, what Natasha talked about and what we talk about at Community Build Ventures is this three-pronged approach to racial equity centered design. One is culture transformation. So, within our organization, how are we centering racial equity? Collaboration transformation. How are we, as we're working to center equity, how are we also working to center it in the way that we collaborate with our partners? And the light bulb that went off for me is that idea of how are workforce development institutions, they are incubators, they are recruiters, and all these other folks who are looking to increase, who have been set out with the task to increase diversity by going out and recruiting diverse candidates. How are we also, how are those organizations also collaborating with the people who, the institutions that are seeking to hire to center racial equity even more? So what is the work, not just on the people that they're being recruited, but also on the organizations they're being recruited into? And so we have to be conscious and very intentional about doing work on both sides, because we do have to understand that with the people that the candidates we're hiring or seeking to recruit to place, we have to actually prepare them to, with the modalities and the skills to experience self-care and to heal themselves as they're moving into some environments that would be traumatic because of those environments, those institutions center white dominant culture, right? And so how do we navigate those? But then we also have to work with the institutions that are centering white dominant culture to dismantle that and to develop something new. So I wrote a short blog, which was a lead into a podcast. And really the podcast was me, Natasha, and I having a conversation about racial equity centered workforce development. Click the link below, take a look at it, let me know what you think. The other more personal side of my podcast, as you know, I release a podcast every week. I did a podcast a couple weeks back, and it was about me being an introverted girl dad and just my adventures of taking my daughter to play dates, to birthday parties, to gymnastics, and being one of the few men that are there and being an introverted man. And I started talking about how the space is really awkward for me, and how I'm often seeking verbal and nonverbal approval to be in that space, especially when my wife isn't there when I'm going, because it's primarily women who are there, either mothers, aunts, neighbors, whatever that might be, for these more girl-centered events like a birthday party or whatnot. And so I just talk about that in that podcast. So again, the link is below. Take a look at it, because as well as being a senior partner of education, I'm also a father of two. As I said before, my son's graduating from high school and I got a first grader. And I'm a girl dad and a boy dad, I guess you would say. And so just so many different things that go through. And so I just wanted to be able to share that with you all. And so with this month, that's been the month of May. Very, very exciting. A lot of things that are happening. And we're going into the summer season of June when things in the educational space can slow down. But professional development actually does kick up. And so I am going to actually pause the week of June. It's this coming week coming up. It's the week of June 7th through the 12th to relax. So we're taking our family on a week-long vacation to just relax and just rejuvenate. And I often find that very, very difficult to do, just because there's so many ideas, so many thoughts, so many people I want to reach out to and connect with and continue to build. But just being able to sit back and relax and drink a soda and eat chips and wear board shorts and get a tan and just float in the ocean is going to be exciting for me. So that's coming up for me. But then also later this month, in the month of or June, I think it's June 24th is when it's going to happen. I also was invited to speak at or present a work session with the ASCD Empower 21 virtual conference. Their annual conference is coming up. It's going to be virtual. I think it's the June 23rd, 24th, and 25th. This is an all virtual conference and it's all pre-recorded. So I took some time this month to record a video. And the title of my session is Hiding in Plain Sight, Identifying the Factors that Contribute to Persistent Achievement Gaps. And so what this connects to is it's a specific focus on one component of the equity-centered school improvement work that we do. So remember, with the equity-centered school improvement work, it's a three-part framework. It's, excuse me, it's understand, embrace, and embody. And so this session that I'm presenting is just 40 minutes long. It's really talking about the understand. And what I do is I take down and I introduce our school culture, climate, and equity assessment, just a few pieces of it. I talk about the 5 dimensions of the school learning environment and what we should be looking for as evidence of school culture, of climate, of equity within each of those environments. And so that, which in each of those dimensions of the school learning environment. So just took a moment. 40 minutes is not a long period of time to be able to share a lot. So I thought I'd just kind of give a broad overview and give a taste of each little bit that came with that. But I'm just excited to have that platform to be able to share with you this month. And so that understand work is really what we at CommunityBuild Ventures like to center our work around to begin with, because we have to understand the current state. What's our vision for where we want to go and what is currently happening, and how does what is currently happening align with that bigger vision? That's where we get this gap analysis. That's where the persistent achievement gaps, the persistent challenges, opportunity gaps, that's where the challenges with creating the conditions for racial equity, educational equity to happen are in those gaps. And so we have to work on doing that, because then that sets us up for the embody phase, for the embrace phase. And the embrace part of things is now what we do is we know our vision, we know what we're currently doing, we understand the gaps. Now we develop an implementation roadmap. That is what's key. And that roadmap is not a one size fits all roadmap. It is saying, here's what's happening, here's current state, here's where we'd like to be. Let's talk collaboratively about how we're going to implement. So what are we going to implement? What are we going to do? What are the interventions we're going to use? What are the strategies? What's the process? And then what's the plan for rolling that out? That's the embrace part, because that's where the work continues. So we take the understand, current state, move to the embrace, And then that puts us in positions for embodying. So living out those things consistently. So that's the work. And that's the work we begin with in terms of our equity, our school culture, climate, and equity assessment that was developed and honed through over 20 years of research by the Bethune Institute and Dr. Lynn Smith, who's been doing exceptional work out of Kentucky. And so that's a part of that work. And so if you are interested in learning more about how we're leading Brave Space, the work we're doing with Black male educators or creating retention strategies, or the work in equity centered school improvement, if you're interested in our equity assessment process, our school improvement process, feel free to reach out. You know, you can email me, Ayodele at communitybuildventures.com, DM me on Instagram and Twitter, find me in those spaces. But it's just been an exciting month of May, and I'm looking forward to resting and relaxing, but then also going and also launching, but also doing wonderful things coming up this June. It is a slower period for our educators, but I do wish you all the best as you are relaxing and rejuvenating, finding your space. But one of the things that's really interesting, I'll end on this note, is that many people think that, like, the teachers, right, educators, oh, you get 3 months off, right? And you might see them saying, wow, I finally get time to relax. I finally get time to sleep in. But I got to tell you that during the summer months, May, June, July, and August, depending upon how the school year starts, and early September, a lot of teachers, this is professional development season. This is work on yourself season, whether it's working on self-care, whether it's figuring out, thinking about revamping your lesson plans, if it's your unit plans, if it's thinking about what type of projects you're going to bring to your school, if it's going out and learning, participating in conferences and workshops where you're learning about compassion-centered mindfulness, or you're learning about culturally sustaining pedagogy, you're learning about critical race theory, whatever that might be. This is a very, very active time. Also, our buildings are really active because this is a time, typically pre-COVID, where the buildings are getting redone, floors are getting refinished. Everybody's in trying to work with that. Our principals are trying to figure out what's the master schedule, bringing together their leadership team, also finding time to break. So it also is a very, very busy season for educators. So it's not just 3 months off, like they're just chilling, drinking Mai Tai. That is some people's experience. And I'm not judging. If that's what they want to do, that's what they're going to do. But it's also a time where educators really show how much of a lifelong learner they are by really doubling down and figuring out how to become better in their particular work and expand their minds so they can create the conditions so that our students can show up fully, authentically, and begin to see the potential of what their future holds for them. So anyway, so I wish you all the best for this month. I wish you all well, and I'll see you very soon. Don't hesitate to reach out, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Take care.